Yes. So good evening to one and all present here today. Today is a special moment and day for all of us. We are celebrating autism and trying to address a couple of the aspects around autism. So we have our speakers, eminent speakers, Ms. Rakshita, Ms. Pavani, and also Dr. Pungade Balaji here today. Now I would like to invite our partner for this program, Daffodil Health, Ms. Tinu, to give a short bio about what they are into under the special kids category, how they are changing the environment for the special kids. Over to you, Tina.
Thank you, Soumya, and good evening to one and all. So I'll just play a video on what we are doing. I'll just share my screen and show you the video. Okay.
They say it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a lot more to nurture a child with special needs. But with the right kind of support, we believe that they too can live happy, independent, and meaningful lives. My name is Amal. I'm the founder of Daffodil Health, a digital platform that caters to the developmental needs of children. Through our apps, we provide support, guidance, and information to parents. We also provide screening, assessment, and therapy services, and a marketplace where parents can get access to various solutions that cater to the developmental needs of their children. Thank you.
That is a brief video on what we are doing, what are services we are providing. So today my task is to introduce Rakshita ma'am. So she's an educator and consultant for disability rights and organizations in schools. She has a master's in intellectual and development disabilities from the University of Kent, UK. She's been working with as a teacher with general education as well as special education. And she's passionate on autism and inclusion. So I invite you to share your views on autism, and I hand over the session to hand over to Soumya to introduce the rest of the speakers.
Happy to collaborate with Daffodil Health for this wonderful session on autism. And we have eminent speakers, as I mentioned earlier, Dr. Pavani, Ms. Rakshita, and Pungode Balaji. I would like to introduce Dr. Pungode Balaji, consultant obstetrics gynecology and founder of Nalam Foundation. I need to give a special intro on Nalam Foundation by Dr. She was able to reach more than 1 lakh of women in urban and rural area, focusing on the prevention and identification of breast and cervical cancer. Her organization is largely working around schools and colleges, emphasizing the hazards of alcohol, tobacco, and STD. Thank you, doctor. Thank you for joining today. Now, I would like to introduce Dr. T Pavani. She's known as the Chief Pediatric Dentist and Myofunctional Orthodontist, founded Danam Dental Hospital in the year 2016. She doesn't need a detailed introduction because many of her colleagues and the dental fraternity knows Pavani as a person and also who works around special kids care and also give guidance for special kids parents as well. She is also a committee member of Federation of Special Care Dentistry. Thank you, Dr. Pavani, for joining us today. And let's start the session from Ms. Rakshita Shekar on her views on autism and accordingly. Thank you.
Hi, I'm sorry I started sharing screen much earlier than it was my time. Okay, so what I want to introduce today is what autistic people feel about their autism. I will be presenting some theory that is coming out of autistic researchers who are researching autism, some opinions that are being expressed by autistic people worldwide. And my basic objective is that I want you to leave this session looking at autism from the autistic person's point of view. All our books, psychology, medicine, they talk about autism in one perspective, from one perspective. What we are finding is that these perspectives are very different from lived experiences. Autistic people feel very differently from what is written in our books and what we are taught commonly about what is autism. So today I want to introduce you to the world of autism from an autistic person's point of view. First, before we start about autism, I want to address this question: what is disability? We generally think that disability, if I don't have a leg, that means I'm disabled. If I cannot hear, that means I'm disabled. If I cannot remember, that means my working memory or my long-term memory is very short, then I'm disabled. What disability rights advocates have been talking about and what UN now recognizes. So according to the UNCRPD, which is the United Nations Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities, what we are understanding is disability is something like disability is an experience. Disability does not reside inside a human being, but it is an experience. There is an atypical body. We are not denying that the body is atypical. The body does not have one leg. The body cannot hear through the ears. The body cannot speak through the mouth. The body does not understand social norms or social expectations. So there can be different types of atypicalities in bodies. So there is an atypical body, but that body is chronically not supported. This leads to severe decrease in ability to function and contribute, which we term as disability, which means that disability is a personal experience, and the cause of disability is not my body, but how the society is designed, how the infrastructure is designed, how opportunities are designed for me to access. So then what is autism? If we look at the animal world, there are many subtypes to every animal. There are some 500, 600 types of ants. There are many types of tigers, and we don't say that the red ant is better than the black ant, or we don't say that the Bengal tiger is better than the Siberian tiger. We recognize that the diversity in animal species is natural. And this kind of diversity is also natural in human beings' neurological systems. So how the neurology of the human body is developed, or how it is developing, can vary, right? And this diversity is also naturally occurring. And one of those diverse forms of neurologies in the human population is autism. What is the autism spectrum? I know when we think of autism, we think of, like, for example, there is one line of red, and there is on one end, there is a light red, on the other end, there is a dark red. Light red means mild autism, dark red means severe autism, and that I, as an autistic person, am somewhere on that line. What our lived experiences are telling us is that this is not how autism spectrum looks like. This is not how autism works. The core feature of autism is a spiky profile. If we look at psychoeducational tests, then a non-autistic person with no intellectual disability might have a variation in their skills between 5 and 10 points. But in autistic individuals, the difference between the strengths and the weaknesses can go as far as 100 points. That means that I might be very good at something and I am very bad at something. That is the core feature of autism. That extremely uneven and spiky profile is the core feature of autism. Here on the left is one way to visualize this spectrum, which means that this spectrum resides inside every autistic person. Right now, you're listening to me. I can speak very well on a Zoom platform because everybody's muted, because my presentation is prepared. And I have my thoughts already in my head. And so it's easy. Put me in a face-to-face situation and you will not hear even one word from me because I'll be a mess inside my head. So I might, I'm very good at speaking. I'm very good at preparing, but I'm not good with sound sensitivities at all, which will affect my ability to socialize, which will affect my ability to communicate and interact with other people. That is how the spectrum works, that the spectrum is inside me, that in some areas I'm very good and in some areas I'm not at all good. How is autism classified? I know there is a lot of convenience in classifying autism as mild or severe, low functionality, high functionality. But this classification has never, ever helped any autistic individual because it does not tell us how the profile of the person looks. In what areas do they have strengths? In what areas do they have impairments? What areas or what do they need support with? And what autistic people have been saying for many, many years now during our advocacy is that these functionality labels or classification systems do not work. They are not helpful for us. They are helpful for doctors. They are helpful for therapists. But they are absolutely not helpful for autistic people because you will not be able to support me unless you know what my strengths are and unless you know what my weaknesses are. And my strengths and weaknesses, the difference between my strength and weaknesses is too much. So what you may see right now is not what I really am in all situations. Also, this functionality is a function of the support being given. So like, for example, I said my functionality is really good on a Zoom platform when it comes to social interaction. But when it comes to face-to-face interaction, my functionality will dip very fast because of the sensory sensitivities that I have. I can't stand smells, I can't stand sounds, I can't stand more than 2 people talking. I have to keep a track of what their body is saying. I have to keep a track of what their eyes are saying, what their words are saying, and plus people don't mean what they say. So I have to keep a track of, oh, wait a minute, they said this, but they actually don't mean this. What do they really mean? There's just so much that my brain is doing that after one such social event, I just have to sleep. And you will find this in most autistic children. This, when I was in school and I was a teenager, I was a very, very good, very, very silent child in school for the same reasons that I just mentioned. But the moment I would come home, I would be a mess. I was very aggressive. I was running away from home. I was hitting people, throwing stuff. My parents took me to psychiatrists many times. Of course, the psychiatrist said that it's just behavior problem. So, they should hit me 2-3 times. I just don't have respect for elders, stuff like that. Many years later, as an adult, when I look back to that time, I know that the whole day at school, adjusting, tolerating to that sound, tolerating the sound, tolerating the smells, tolerating the touches. I'm very sensitive to touch. So people even tapping me on my shoulder can startle me. And it feels like sandpaper rubbing on my body. People talking, like not understanding the social cues, being bullied in school. So many things I had to adjust to in school, so many things I had to tolerate in school, that my brain was so overactive. I was intellectualizing the whole thing, or in other words, my brain was working so hard in school that by the time I came home, I had absolutely no energy, like zero energy to even do anything. I remember I would just throw my bag and my mother would say, keep your bag in its right place. And in my head, I'm thinking, which is the bag? Because my brain cannot function. It's so tired. This you will find in many, many autistic children, this dichotomy. At home, they are very nice. At school, they are a mess. Or at school, they are very nice. At home, they are a mess. And it is usually a function of how much pressure the environment is putting on their brains. So functionality really depends on the environment. It is not an inherent characteristic of a human being. And therefore, if you classify somebody as mildly autistic, like I have been often told that I'm mildly autistic, but there are days when I wake up and I have to be told, okay, Rakshita, now pick up your brush and brush your teeth. And in my head, I'll be thinking, wait, brush, where is the brush? And my parents or my husband have to give me like step-by-step instruction. Okay, now do this. Okay, now take this, now do this, because I cannot function. And so if you label me as mildly autistic, you will not be able to see that I have those periods when I am severely dysfunctional and I need very high support at that time, that I need somebody next to me all the time and I cannot do anything by myself. If you label somebody as severely autistic, then you will miss out seeing their strengths. You will miss out thinking that they're capable of going to a regular school, having a job, and getting married and having children. Because functionality is a function of the support being given and not an inherent characteristic of a human being. So when autistic people, when we talk to each other, really the first things we talk about are what are your strengths and what are your support needs. And I really wish these were the things that were put down in reports, in diagnostic reports, instead of this child has mild autism, because that really doesn't help us understand this profile of the person. Now then, you might be thinking, is autism a disorder? You will find that many autistic people actually are proud of being autistic. Even the ones you call severely autistic. When we communicate, when I have communicated with them using communication systems like PECs or AACs, other AACs, PECs is also an AAC, other AACs, I have usually found that they are okay with themselves. They don't want to change. They think being different is good. Why do they think like that? Because they inherently know that they have gifts that other people don't have. They know they are weak in some things. They know their weakness drives people crazy. But they know very intuitively that they have gifts that other people don't have. And therefore, a lot of people, a lot of autistic people are actually proud of being autistic. We don't look at it as a disorder. We don't think that autism in itself is a disorder. And if you see autistic self-advocacy groups all around the world are advocating for the word disorder to be removed. We refer to it just as autism. Some professionals have understood and they are now referring to it as autism spectrum conditions. But you know, when we say condition, again, it's a very medicalized term, brings people's memories back to pathologically defective bodies. So I don't prefer using it, but if people want to use it, that's fine. But disorder, most autistic people don't think they're disordered. Then how is autism a disability? Because we are marginalized, because our atypical bodies are chronically lacking support. If I am in a group of people, with a group of people, and I tell them, you know, I can hear the sound from the wires, and that's really disturbing my concentration, and I'm really getting disoriented. Do you think they're going to say, oh, let's just move to Zoom? and converse like that. No. They're going to say, oh, well, everybody here is fine. You're the only one who's not fine. So please adjust. And it's causing me physical distress. But people can't see it. People can't see how, people can't experience how the sound from the wires, because they can't hear the sound from the wires. So they can't even imagine how sound from the wires can disorient somebody to the point that they become dysfunctional. So this is why autism is a disability, but not a disorder. I mean, that's what we feel, autistic people feel all around the world, that autism is not a disorder, but it is a disability. You may say, but autistic behaviors are not appropriate and they have to be changed. Let me ask you a question. You can type it in the chat. You can type your answers in the chat box. You have gone into this red door. Okay, this is a thought experiment. You have gone into this red door and you see this little blind girl. She comes to you. She's touching you all over. She's feeling you all over and she's smelling you. What would you think? Type it in the chat box. Your answers. What would be your response? My question, I'll repeat. You have gone into this red door, red or orange, whatever that color is. I'm not great with colors. You've gone into this door and you see this little girl. She comes and she feels you up and she smells you. What would you feel? Okay, she may be blind. Yes, you're seeing that she's blind. Help her out by telling her whom you are and ask for any help needed. Superb. She's feeling me. Okay. Priya, do you mean that she's trying to understand you? Is that what you mean by this sentence? She's imagining in her own, okay, that's what you mean, Priya. Okay, she imagines in her own giving some pictures. Okay, she's curious. Superb. Now, next door, you go to the next door, but this time you are blindfolded. And you can feel that some child has come and the child is feeling your body. She's touching your body all over and she's smelling you. What would be your response? You are in the second door, in the green door. You are blindfolded. You cannot see. And this girl, not this girl, you can only feel that a small girl is touching your whole body and she's smelling you. How would you feel? Type your answers in the chat box. Okay, now you will be curious. Okay. Frightened. Okay. Dr. Vishnu, what will you be curious about? You will, Soumya says you will be lost. Dr. Johnson says strange feeling. Okay, Priya says you'll try to adjust to the new condition. Okay. Dr. Vishnu, Vishnu Prabhu, can you tell me what will you be curious about? I didn't understand. Yeah, somebody says little strange. Superb. Now you go into the blue door. You are not blindfolded. Just what or who is wrong. Okay. Thanks, Dr. Vishnu. Now you go into the blue door. And you are not blindfolded. You can see everything. And this child comes and starts feeling you, touching you all over, and starts smelling you. What will be your response? You are now gone into the blue door. In the blue door, this boy you see, and he's touching you all over, and he's smelling you. Soumya asks, is he okay? Wait and watch. Relax that I can see the person. Okay. Okay, sure. You have gone into the blue door and you see this boy, and this boy comes up to you and he starts touching your body everywhere and he starts smelling you. What would be your response now? Wait, watch, relax that I can see the person. Okay. Whoever has written this, Daffodil Health, relax that you can see the boy. Okay, but how would you feel about the boy's actions, the boy's behavior? What is his problem, I may think? From curious to attention. Dr. Vishnu, can you elaborate on this? I didn't understand. From curious to attention, that I really didn't understand what you mean by that. Soumya says he may be curious to know me by feeling. I would probably try distracting the child, engage in some other activity. Oh, Priya, he's not blind. Correct. Earlier you were blindfolded. Now you can see the boy, correct? And you can see that he's touching you. How will you feel about that, Daffodil Health? Radhika says, I will try to understand why he's doing this. You will feel good that he's touching you. Okay. He's exploring. Okay. Consider, now I'm giving you this information that this child is autistic. Now what will be your response? Okay, Dr. Vishnu says, earlier I was curious, but now I'm drawn to more action, touch, and more things to witness. Okay. Take his hand in yours and explain things. Okay. What else? I will explain things. Okay. We'll look for what he needs. Okay. Anybody else? I will prompt about his thoughts and his actions. Okay. Consider that, or do you realize how your reaction to the blind child showing the same behaviors? So the blind child is also showing the same behaviors. The autistic child is also showing the same behaviors. But how people respond, how generally, usually, how instinctively we respond to the blind child is very different from how we respond to the autistic child. The same behavior. This is because we can see that this child is blind. And in our head, we know what it feels like not to be able to see. We can experience it. We just have to close our eyes. And we can experience a little bit at least of how it feels to be blind. And so we can empathize with that child and we can say, oh, you're trying to identify me. You're trying to see who I am. That's okay. I'll help you more. But what if I told you that a lot of us autistic people do this because we, like this, probably this child, autistic child, also identifies people by the tactile sense and the olfactory sense. He can see very well, but his visual comprehension is not that great. And therefore, he prefers to identify people the same way that the blind child is identifying people. We cannot even imagine that there can be somebody like this. And therefore, the moment the child is coming, our reaction to him is the same as our reaction when we were blindfolded. That this behavior is wrong and it has to be stopped. And therefore, all our therapy models are based on changing autistic people's behaviors. Now, I'm not saying all of our behaviors are correct. Yes, we can be aggressive, we can throw things, we can hurt people, yes. But I'm saying a lot of these, day-to-day behaviors that you see in autism, all of them, doctors are saying, therapists are saying, the behavior needs to be changed. And we don't understand what are the underlying cognitive reasons for those behaviors. Sure, touching people is not right. You can't just go on touching people. What would you teach the blind child? Look, you cannot keep touching people. You can ask them for their hand and you can feel their hand, feel their palm, and that's it. That's about how much you can identify them by touching. It's not safe to touch anymore. That's what we will teach the blind child. Why don't we do the same thing with the autistic child? Because we don't understand how the autistic brain works. If we understand how the autistic brain works, the solution will become much simpler. That we are not trying to, that autism is not about only the behaviors. The behaviors are a result of cognitive functioning. How cognitive processes are happening in the brain. How emotions are being processed. How environmental stimuli are being processed. If we look at it in this way, then we will see that a lot of autistic behaviors actually become understandable and that we have a much easier time changing those behaviors. We have a much easier time making the child understand. we have a much easier time for our own mental health. Like we are not so worried, Arey, bapre, this child is like, what do we do? What do I do? It's much easier on all the parties involved. So why do autistic people behave so weirdly or oddly? There are multiple theories that are coming out now. One is the sensory perceptual theory, which means that our sensory system just works very, very differently. And so the way we are taking in information through our senses, through our 8 senses, is very, very different, because of which the way we are processing information is different, and how we are reacting to that information is very different. Another theory is the monotropism theory, and I want to stress that these theories have been suggested by autistic people themselves, by autistic researchers who are studying autism. Monotropism theory, where we say that our brains are like, so the autistic brain is like an attention tunnel. Whatever is inside that tunnel will get attention. Whatever is outside that tunnel does not get attention. And there's also now research going on about how this affects the developmental trajectories, the atypical developmental trajectories that we see in autistic children. Why we are, say, at 3 years of age, a child is not speaking at all, but could probably read very fluently. And by reading, I mean not reading aloud, but identifying words and stuff like that. So whatever the brain focuses its attention on, it can see in a lot of detail. It goes very deep into it, and all the other stimuli get shut off. This is one. This is a second theory. The Bayesian theory is the third theory, which is actually from the mathematical Bayesian model, through which we're saying that the autistic brain just looks at every new information with great precision. So if you see these 3 theories, what they basically are telling you is that autistic brains are not deficit. They are not defective. They are really very different in how they take in information, how they process information. Their cognitive processes are very different in autistic and non-autistic brains, because then the natural outcome of it is that the behaviors are going to be different. Polyvagal theory really says that autistic people, if you see the stimming, the social withdrawal, all of that is really a function of high threat levels that the body is facing constantly. The no eye contact, no facial expression, all of that is a result of the trauma. Microaggressions throughout the day, every day, cause complex PTSD, because of which, and even in as young as 2 and 3-year-old children, because of which we are seeing these features. So these features, like no eye contact, social withdrawal, are not a result of autism, they are a result of an unsupportive environment. What the majority of autistic advocates around the world now believe is that there is a double empathy problem, in that autistic people cannot experience and empathize with non-autistic people. Similarly, non-autistic people cannot empathize with the autistic people. And the only way to solve this problem is by listening, I think. So what is the cure for autism? This was a survey done on Twitter. I know it's not a scientific survey, but 10,000 people answered it. And if you look at the first part, it is all the 10,000 people. Okay, so how many people agree that they want a cure for autism? About 15 plus 14, that's about 30%. Okay. But if you look at only autistic people, the majority of them don't want a cure. If you see non-autistic people, they want a cure. Do you see the dichotomy here? Not dichotomy, I think. The dilemma. How do we help our autistic loved ones? Total communication methods. Any method of communication should be okay. Speech is not a superior form of communication. Any communication method should be okay. Sensory accommodations and social accommodations. And all our therapy should be person-centered. Medical or allied medical professionals who are giving therapies should put the person in the center while giving therapies. I want to end by showing you this video.
The previous part of this video was in my native language. Many people have assumed that when I talk about this being my language, that means that each part of the video must have a particular symbolic message within it, designed for the human mind to interpret. But my language is not about designing words or even visual symbols for people to interpret. It is about being in a constant conversation with every aspect of my environment, reacting physically to all parts of my surroundings. In this part of the video, the water doesn't symbolize anything. I am just interacting with the water as the water interacts with me. Far from being purposeless, the way that I move is an ongoing response to what is around me. Ironically, the way that I move when responding to everything around me is described as being in a world of my own, whereas if I interact with a much more limited set of responses and only react to a much more limited part of my surroundings, people claim that I am opening up to true interaction with the world. They judge my existence, awareness, and personhood on which of a tiny and limited part of the world I appear to be reacting to. The way I naturally think and respond to things looks and feels so different from standard concepts or even visualization that some people do not consider it thought at all, but it is a way of thinking in its own right. However, the thinking of people like me is only taken seriously if we learn your language, no matter how we previously thought or interacted. As you heard, I can sing along to what is around me. It is only when I type something in your language that you refer to me as having communication. I smell things. I listen to things. I feel things. I taste things. I look at things. It is not enough to look and listen and taste and smell and feel. I have to do those to the right things, such as look at books, and fail to do them to the wrong things, or else people doubt that I am a thinking being. And since their definition of thought defines their definition of personhood so ridiculously much, they doubt that I am a real person as well. I would like to honestly know how many people, if you met me on the street, would believe I wrote this. I find it very interesting by the way that failure to learn your language is seen as a deficit, but failure to learn my language is seen as so natural that people like me are officially described as mysterious and puzzling rather than anyone admitting that it is themselves who are confused, not autistic people or other cognitively disabled people who are inherently confusing. We are even viewed as non-communicative if we don't speak the standard language, but other people are not considered non-communicative if they are so oblivious to our own languages as to believe they don't exist. In the end, I want you to know that this has not been intended as a voyeuristic freak show where you get to look at the bizarre workings of the autistic mind. It is meant as a strong statement on the existence and value of many different kinds of thinking and interaction in a world where how close you can appear to a specific one of them determines whether you are seen as a real person, or an adult, or an intelligent person, and in a world in which those determine whether you have any rights. There are people being tortured, people dying, because they are considered non-persons, because their kind of thought is so unusual as to not be considered thought at all. Only when the many shapes of personhood are recognized will justice and human rights be possible.
Thank you.